Okay, hello everyone. This is Jim Lewis, and welcome to our webinar on how to launch projects successfully. This webinar was developed by participants in a seminar here at NC State University called Project Management Tools, Principles, Practices, and we are in the middle of it. The seminar is part of our Project Management Certificate series, and if you aren't familiar with that series and are interested, you can go to the link on this slide, and I'll give you just a moment to copy this down if you need to. It's http://continuingeducation.ncsu.edu. And it is a series that you need 3 core courses and 2 electives to complete, and you have 3 years to do it. So if you're interested, go to the website. You can download a catalog, course catalog, and take a look at what we're offering. So this webinar is the class project in the Tools, Principles, Practices seminar, designed to help people learn how to manage a project in a hands-on way. You folks should be seeing this slide that says, in my 50 years experience with projects, I found that they typically fail at the beginning more often than at the end. And in fact, a few years ago, NASA published a report on failures in projects at NASA and found that, believe it or not, projects are actually perfectly planned to fail. That means that they didn't have a chance to succeed because the plan itself was defective from the very beginning. And since planning is part of the launch of a project, that says that many projects are launched so that they're going to fail. Now the question is, can we correct it? And the answer is, of course we can, or else we wouldn't be doing this webinar to tell you how it can be done. So I'm going to introduce group number 1. They developed the next topic, which is called Causes of Project Launch Failure. And Mike Porter is going to take the hot seat here and present his part.
Thank you, and again, good morning. My name is Mike Porter, and although I've spoken to a number of live audiences, I've never spoken to a webinar audience. So Dr. Lewis reminded me that for those online, you could even be naked. So please cover up, just so I am a little more comfortable and can relax of who I'm talking to. So thank you.
They don't know that you're naked.
Uh-oh, I could be naked, so who knows. Obviously, our goal as project managers is to manage successful projects, but occasionally projects do fail. The focus of our group 1, will be on causes of project failure. We realize every project may have its own specific cause for failure. We just tried to highlight some of the root causes for the specific failures. Let's first take a look at some statistics from the Standish Group. They found in this study that 33% of projects fail, or 1 in 3. 17% succeed, 50% must be revised. The railroad track scenario I love is a beautiful illustration of how you begin a project clearly with the end in mind, so that this doesn't happen to you. As good project managers, we must get the fundamentals right, or projects fail at the beginning. Thus, the project team must build consensus, a key component, on the basic elements that define the project: a problem statement, a vision statement, and a mission statement. These are at the core of every project, and Group 2 will actually go into more detail on these 3 statements. A prudent exercise is to have every member of the project team write out their own version of the problem, vision, and mission statements for the project. In other words, did everyone actually hear the same way when those statements were made? Lack of consensus. As we know, silence doesn't always mean agreement. The Abilene Paradox tells us a situation where everyone involved remains silent and assumes that everyone is in agreement, when in reality everyone is wanting to go in a different direction. This is a failure to manage disagreement. The goal is to create a culture to speak up and discuss their differences. Group 2 will also go into a little more detail on this paradox. What if there is no discussion, or consensus rather, after the discussion? What are our options? Could it be due to a dissenter in the group? Do you try to convince the dissenter, go the direction of the dissenter, or remove the dissenter from the group? The key here is to pay attention to the dissenter. They may make or break the project for you. Another root cause for project failures is the requirements are unclear. The customer actually may not know what they want. A good exercise to go through here is to ask your customer a number of whys, up to 5. Why do you want to make something better? Why do you want to make it faster? Does it need to be better? And continue down the road. How often do we assume the customer is always right, that in the end they don't know, or better yet, can't clearly state what they wanted? Sometimes even what they wanted wasn't necessarily what they needed. This is a great summary illustration of how a project can go entirely different direction than planned. The customer only wanted a rope swing, but how the customer explained it and how it was interpreted, as you can see in the first slide, was clearly not the same. The second on how the project leader understood it, how the analyst designed it, how the programmer wrote it, how the business consultant described it, how the project was documented, what operations installed. This is great. How the customer was billed, how it was supported, and what the customer actually needed was purely just a rope swing. Group 2 will take over and talk about preventing launch failures. Your speakers, Emrys. Thank you.
Good morning, and thanks for that excellent overview of why failure occurs. And now we're going to get to the really important part here, which is how to avoid it, preventing launch failures. And critical to this is clarity, as you might expect. And what we're really talking about here is properly defining the problem, the vision, and the mission of a project. And this is really how we can help avoid failure. Again, those causes related to an inability to gain consensus, to poor communication among the team, and the resulting unclear program requirements and incompatible elements. And the prevention side of this, which is really about creating a culture of communication, addressing disagreement through discussion, and providing that clarity through a problem statement and vision and mission that can lead to a successful product launch or project launch. I'm going to begin by looking specifically at the problem statement, and 2 additional speakers from our group will cover the vision and mission in detail. The definition of a problem statement really is describing that gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that there are some obstacles that you confront. We need to avoid treating the symptom. We really need to look at what the problem is, and we want to make sure that we're finding the right solution to the right problem, and that we're not simply creating a solution or the right solution to the wrong problem, because at the end of the day that isn't going to solve the problem. Generally speaking, there are 2 types of problems. There's closed-ended problems, and these are oriented towards the past, and they can be solved with a single solution developed from analytical methods. I think we all wish that these were the common problems. Unfortunately, they're not. Most projects deal with open-ended problems, which are oriented towards the future, and there's usually multiple solutions, and there's really a creative thinking left brain process required to really engage those types of problems. So the way that we move forward, well, first of all, we want to know why this is important. And this is a critical step because the way that we define the problem determines how we solve it. We need the right solution to the right problem. Again, that sounds simple, but it's fundamental, right? If the problem is wrong, even if the solution is right, we have failed. And I've said that twice now because it is absolutely essential, fundamental. How do we do this? What are the steps? What are the methods? Well, first of all, we need to take the time necessary to do this. We can't just jump right into the work. And there's some steps that we can follow, but allotting enough time at the beginning of a project, really investing in this foundation is completely necessary. And the purpose is to help us identify the shared values and a clear purpose. And we should not really focus on the cause or the remedies at this point. The problem needs to be of a manageable size, so that may require splitting it into more than one problem potentially, but it needs to be something that can be addressed. And the characteristics of that problem need to be measurable. We need to be able to determine if we're making progress towards it. And we need to be willing to refine the problem statement as new knowledge emerges. So just as an example, and I apologize to any participating hypochondriacs, but the headache might be a symptom of something worse, like a tumor, right? And depending on how you define the problem, if you say your problem is only the headache, well, then the solution would just be an Advil or some other pain medication to address the headache. However, if it's a brain tumor, then the course of action is quite different. And it's absolutely critical to properly make that determination first and foremost. So I'm going to hand it over to Leanne to get into the vision. And we're going to continue to build up this example as we go forward and think about how properly defining the problem from the beginning influences our development of our vision and our mission statements and how those lead us to a successful launch.
Thank you, Emery, and good morning to all of you. Like the age-old saying goes, what came first, the chicken or the egg? One could also say what comes first, the problem or the vision of how something could be better. The vision defines the final outcome. It depicts the final result of your team's effort. During this beginning phase of the project launch, forget about the how. It is unimportant at this time. You cannot move forward or determine how until you have a clear picture of where you are going and what you want to achieve. It is imperative that everyone on your team has the same vision. If this is not the case, you may end up with people moving in different directions, which obviously will not lead you in the direction you want to go. We don't all visualize things in the same way. I could describe something, a product or event, and the person sitting to my right will have a completely different image in his head than the woman to my left, and the possibilities are endless. So take the time to discuss the vision with your team and the stakeholders in the project. If there are clients, keep in mind, talk to them as well. Be cautious, however, because people and clients are known to change their minds. Make them be specific and write their expectations down. Ask them why they want it. What is it that they want? How do they expect to use it? Be aware that you may not be able to deliver all that is requested in this version of the product. Products are continually being improved upon. Implement what is necessary and throw in a few bells and whistles and leave the rest for a later date. If the vision is unclear from the beginning, the project will be chaotic and most likely go beyond the scheduled time frame and come in over budget. By nature, we visualize our needs and wants. We do this without even thinking, without knowing it. We are constantly thinking of projects in our head. We are creative, innovative animals, and the speed at which we are progressing increases with each decade. Several years ago, I'll tell you a story. I had a problem. I'm not sure if my vision came before or after the problem, but it became more clear after I threw the Barney CD out the window. As a parent, and I listened to that Barney CD over and over and over again, I just couldn't take it any longer. And as a musician, I thought to myself, I can do something better than this. So my vision started. And my vision grew as I talked to other parents, as I talked to children and what they wanted to hear. And as my vision became clear, so did my expectation. Now, some of what I wanted out of that CD didn't happen. I didn't get an orchestra. I didn't have, Kenny G play with me. But I did get fabulous musicians. I booked a studio. I traveled. I set out a budget. And I achieved my vision. A car maker decides to build a better car. There are obvious needs: an engine, tires, a body, brakes, etc. And there are wants: leather interior, Bose surround sound speakers, a navigation system, power windows and locks. There are future wants, voice command features, a solar-powered engine, an air filtration system, the ability to be submerged in water. When you envision your product and your project, start with the needs. What is it that you are truly trying to provide? Once that is determined, how many of the wants can be implemented depending on the size of your budget, time allotted, and talent of your team. In industry, if new products are not continually improved upon and developed, if the vision is lost, the company becomes stagnant, obsolete, and eventually cannot compete, so it fails. A project is initiated because someone visualizes a solution or outcome that doesn't currently exist. Yes, we visualize new innovative products, but we also visualize new ways of thinking. We imagine how it could be. Dr. Martin Luther King didn't invent anything, but he revolutionized the way people thought about humanity. He got people to believe in themselves and instilled the desire for justice and equality. He put a vision in their heads of a future that held the promise of education and advancement, not only for themselves but for their children. John Lennon imagined that peace was possible, that all you needed was love, and inspired a generation. The vision is powerful. It is motivating. It should propel us forward with excitement. The vision fuels the mission. The mission is to achieve the vision. Suzanne will take over from me, and she will explain what it is, what a mission is, and how it relates to the problem statement and the vision.
Good morning. I'll start with what a mission statement is. A mission statement is a statement that tells everyone where they are going. It is a goal, an objective, or a target, and its purpose is always to achieve the vision of the project outcome. To have a mission statement that works for a team, the team members are given the original idea for a mission statement and asked to put it into their own words. The team works together to consolidate their statements into one statement that everyone can support. The statement is polished and published. It is not put away and forgotten. Rather, it is referred to whenever questions about performance come up or the team needs to make a decision or solve a problem. In this way, all decisions support achieving the team's mission. Clarity for the mission statement helps group members feel certain of what they need to do. This is a way to ensure we do not create anxiety for team members, especially for remote members who may feel disconnected from the team. Additionally, there is always the possibility that one member may disagree with the statement or just see it differently. In this case, it should be resolved early on. If not, the discrepancy may cause the team to fail. How can we solve this? First, it may be resolved through discussion that clears the misunderstanding. Or it may be that the individual is more accurate in his interpretation, and the team may choose to adjust the mission statement. If these options do not work, then the team member may have to leave because agreement on the mission is fundamental for a successful project. The Abilene Paradox supports the notion that silence means consent. When we fail to manage disagreement, we fail to launch our project from the start. If no one says anything when presented with a new mission statement, the project manager may assume there is agreement. Examples of the Abilene Paradox in everyday life happen all the time. Take, for instance, simply making a suggestion for dinner at a specific restaurant in a group of maybe 10 people. If no one says otherwise, we all tend to assume it's okay. But in fact, if no one ventures to speak for fear of disagreeing or for any other reason, then several may actually be unhappy or dissatisfied with the choice. And the dinner meeting is not very successful. Team members' involvement in creating the mission statement allows for an emphasis on the what and the how instead of the task only. The what is the task performance, and how it is performed is the process. The process also includes how a team functions as a group, the interaction, decision-making, resolving conflict, etc. All of these actions affect task performance. If the process is defective, there will be a negative task outcome. In general, a consensual mission statement is a key component for a successful project. To refer to our group example of a failure to launch a project, we could say that seeking out the proper medication or diagnosis for the cause of the headache would be better than just taking aspirin. A good example of a mission statement is to learn the elements of an efficient and effective project launch. Now we will move on to Tina Mace and her group, who will further discuss the importance of team commitment and how we can achieve it.
So as we continue to move into the final section of the webinar, we're going to be focusing on how to develop a commitment from your team. And how do you get everyone on the same page? So we're going to talk about what exactly is commitment. We're going to talk about your leadership role as a project manager. Certainly wanting to set the expectation, the clarity of the team vision, and focusing on the specific expectations and the goals of that vision. And then again, you want to stop and think, most importantly, as a leader, what is in it for your team members? And that's a very personal focus that needs to be certainly remembered as you are leading multiple projects. So what is commitment? So Wikipedia states that commitment is the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. So it's also known as a pledge or undertaking. So we can look at this definition and we can certainly relate to it immediately from a personal perspective. And commitment interacts with ourselves on our daily activities, for the most part, within our personal lives. Most of us may not think about commitment so much in the workplace, or we may not use the term commitment as much in the workplace. So as you view this picture, what's the first thought when you're viewing this picture? It's obviously broken. It's a chain that is broken. It needs to be mended. So therefore, it's not going to give you the strength and the security to be able to utilize it for whatever purpose that you are requiring. So we all have heard the saying that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And it's a stronger indication here that each member, each link here, needs to be dedicated and committed, because it's obvious that you cannot have success if there is a gap or a broken link. So I think we can all appreciate that there has to be a strong leadership model from a team perspective. You're going to have a leader that is driven, and they're going to have to be conscientious that they can't do this alone. That there is a project, but there's many aspects of the project in which they need the support to be able to have the overall success for that project. So the leader is going to look and share enthusiasm and passion for the project. He needs to get excited. You really need to show, enthusiasm, excitement for the project, that you believe in this project as well as you believe in the team that you're setting forth to put together. And some of the things that you think about is a key role here is maintaining a positive environment. So you need to make sure that you take out and remove negativity, negative connotation, and some of the focal words, the wording that you're choosing is certainly more on a positive note and a positive direction flowing forward. And one of the most important things that you can do is really empower your members, really truly make them feel what the responsibility they have within the project, knowing how much importance they're going to carry, and that this is a team effort, again, to achieve success. So how do you think you can achieve, as a leader, achieving some of this success when you're building your team? So you heard in the previous segment about vision. So, and there was discussion about a clear vision. So when you're gaining commitment, you got to make sure that everybody, again, is on the same page. Because, again, if everyone's not agreeing on your vision, then the person typically is going to be achieving the outcome that they imagine. So it is imperative that the vision is agreed upon by each individual, that they see the end result, they believe in the end result, and they feel that they can gain that end result. So within the vision, how are you going to get there? You have to have expectations and goals set forth, and what are part of those expectations and goals? So first of all, your members want to know, well, how are you going to measure me? So they want to look to see, how are you going to measure success? And, how are we going to be able to achieve those measurements? So there's a timing factor a part of this. So you want to make sure that you are intimately involved with the task, with the member assigned, and you have collaborative discussions as to how long do you think it's going to take for this particular task, and how long do you think it will be before you'll be able to complete the task. And you want to be able to share with the members that you trust them within their input, within their level of expertise, and their overall, again, agreement in the way the project their success is going to be measured within the project. So these are some key elements. And again, within the expectations and goals, maintaining that positive environment is going to be critical for gaining the overall commitment. So finally, as we all do well in this society, is we all think about ourselves. So as a project leader, you're thinking about, how can I build a team to be successful? So again, how are we developing the commitment from team members within our organization? So the team members are sitting and saying, well, what's in it for me to support you on this project? Well, from a professional perspective, they can look at it as, this is additional continuing development for me personally. I'm gaining responsibility within my organization, responsibility within my specific department. I'm actually gaining responsibility from my specific manager, allowing me to be a part of this project. They could be incentivized You could have projects to where they are incentivized from a monetary perspective, or either as far as advancement, further advancement opportunities. A lot of times from a professional development, the more your team members are a part of projects, they gain better business knowledge about who the company actually is and the functionality of the company. And always, as you tie in new projects, you're going to gain new skill sets. That should be inevitable for any team member participating in a new project. So as far as personal interest, it's self-fulfillment. People love recognition. They love empowerment. They love praise and confidence. And certainly being a part of a team and having team success, an individual certainly is going to be gaining all of these things that are listed here. So as you leave the webinar today and you're trying to have a strong takeaway, when you think about commitment, I would ask that you take the word commitment and you equate it to three things. Understanding, which is understanding the vision, the clarity of the vision, and that you, within that vision, have agreement. You have agreement on your expectations and goals. And if you add those two things together and you always tie it into the personal interest of that team member, you're always going to walk away with success. And the commitment may not carry you to 100%, but that commitment ultimately is going to lead to a higher percentage of success for your projects. And if you believe in what you're doing personally as a leader, and you always take into consideration your personal team members' attributes, they're going to be able to build a strong project management team. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Jim Lewis.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, I want to tie up a couple of loose ends here before we start taking questions. So I want to backtrack just a little bit. One of the challenges that you have in all projects is when there are handoffs from one group to another, they don't always connect correctly, or you miss something. So as I'm standing in the back of the room listening to the presentations, it occurred to me that we need to make a little bit stronger case about the Abilene Paradox and explain why that is so important in launching a project, because it really is one of the keys to whether or not a project gets launched correctly. So let me begin by telling you the original story, which was written by Jerry Harvey at George Washington University a number of years ago. And the story goes like this. Now, I don't have any slides on this because this is ad-lib, all right? So you'll just have to listen. There's a family in Texas on a hot summer day, and it's like 100 degrees in the shade, and it's Sunday, and they're bored. And they're trying to figure out what they might do that day. And someone suggests, well, why don't we go up to Abilene and have lunch at the cafeteria, because there's nothing around where they live. They lived out in the boonies. And nobody said anything, so the next thing you know, they get in an old car with no air conditioning, and they drive about 70 miles up to Abilene, and they have a cafeteria lunch, which, as you can imagine, isn't superb or anything. And but it's okay, it's acceptable, and they go out of the cafeteria, and they're walking around on the streets of Abilene. And back in the days when the story was first told, the sidewalks have all been rolled up for the weekend, and there's nothing to do on Sunday. And so now they're bored in Abilene. Nothing left to do but turn around and go home. So they get back in the car, they drive another 70 miles with no air conditioning, get back to the house, park the car. They start back toward the house, and one of them looks at the other and says, God, can you believe we just drove 140 miles for that meal? And the other person said, well, I thought you wanted to go. No, I didn't really want to go. I just went because the rest of you did. So now they take a survey, a poll, and they find that nobody really wanted to go to Abilene. They were just kind of thinking out loud in the first place. And so they have driven a 140-mile round trip for a meal that nobody really cared about, and nobody said anything. Now, there's a very significant point about this. It sounds like this is a failure to manage agreement, but it isn't. It's a failure to manage disagreement. Because, as Lisanne said, a lot of times people just sit and don't say anything. There's a cultural thing in a lot of places where you're not supposed to make waves, because if you do that, you're not a good team player. If the leader of the group suggested it, you definitely don't want to say anything, because then you're rocking the boat. And so silence is taken to mean agreement. You must create a culture in which people feel free to say, I don't totally agree with the majority, or I don't quite agree with the leader. Here's my point of view. I'd like to put this out there for you to consider. And nobody's going to shoot the person for saying it. Because if we have a culture where dissent is punished, you'll never have any dissent. And you're going to wind up in Abilene when you don't want to be there. Now, if you think this is just an idle story that Harvey made up, consider some of the places you've been. There are companies that I've worked with over my 30-year career teaching seminars where the CEO of the company wanted a project done. Everybody in the building says it's a waste of our money, our time, our resources, but it's the CEO's idea and we have no choice but to do it. Why don't they say anything? Well, because if they said something, they'd get shot for it. That's what they think anyway. And so they sit idly by and they spend time on projects that shouldn't be done because they can't say anything. When I was a kid, we had a story that I don't remember all the details to, but it was about the emperor who stood up to give a speech in front of a bunch of his subjects, and he's naked. And the only person that is willing to say anything is a little kid who says to his mom, Mom, he's naked. Shh, don't say anything. You know, you'll get your head chopped off for saying anything. You can't tell people or the emperor that he's got no clothes on. And so the Abilene Paradox apparently was alive and well a long time ago before anybody knew about Abilene. And it's still alive and well in a lot of organizations. So the culture must be one where people speak up. Now, one of the things that was stressed by several people in the presentations was that participation in developing the problem statement, the vision statement, the mission statement will keep you out of Abilene. And the reason it will keep you out of Abilene is because it is now an active process of involvement contrasted with a passive process of just sitting and listening. Now, for those of you who are sitting out there in the webinar, if you could see the group in here right now, they're sitting out here at their tables and they're just listening to me talk. And I could stand up here and say, okay, your mission is to do this, and they'll sit out there and they'll look at me, smile, nod their heads, and walk out of the room and go somewhere else because they didn't really get it. And so if I have them sit down and say, okay, let's write out in our own words what Jim told us, they can't not understand, or if they do understand, it'll be obvious. So just the process of having each person write out in their own words what they heard me say is going to make sure that everybody is on the same page together. I've had several clients who've called me up and said they discovered 6 months into a project that everybody wasn't on the same page together. They had wasted tons of money and time trying to do a job that everybody didn't agree on how to do or what to do. And so, again, that's a launch problem. And we have to keep from doing that because we never have time to do it right the first time, but we always find time to do it over. But doing it over costs a lot of money. And so if we can avoid that problem, we'll be better off. Okay, one comment I need to make is I think I had a driver problem here a while ago when I tried to do the polls because I didn't launch them correctly. So we're going to dispense with those because I don't want to wind up shutting the system down again. But I am going to see if we have any questions. Now, if you have questions, you can type those out. And I actually have someone over here who's helping me so that I don't crash the system by trying to answer questions. So if we have any, please write them out, and I'll see if we can answer them for you. This is one of those times when we don't let you talk, but we will let you write. You have a question? I'm checking to see if my people here have a question. Okay, while you're thinking, let me just make one comment about the launch. If you don't have project kickoff meetings, I would encourage you to get your core team together to have a kickoff meeting so that you can deal with these things that we're talking about. And every project is solving a problem of some kind. That's the reason there was so much emphasis on making sure you define the problem correctly. And as was said about having a headache, that's a symptom. That's not the problem itself. And taking painkillers is not going to resolve it if you don't get to the cause. And if the cause is a brain tumor, then you need surgery. You don't need a painkiller. And so making sure that you are defining the problem correctly to start with is imperative. Now here's the rub. There are times when the project sponsor gives you a project and says, go do this, and you should always ask yourself, what problem is this supposed to solve, and is this approach going to solve it? And if you yourself are convinced that what you do is not going to solve that problem, then you need to challenge the assignment and make sure that you get on the same page with the sponsor. Because sponsors sometimes make the error of thinking that a certain approach will solve the problem when in fact it won't. And so we've got to make sure that we're in agreement. If you're in a culture or an environment where to challenge the sponsor would be career suicide, then obviously you can't do this. But if you are in that kind of environment, then you can simply accept the fact that you're going to do projects sometimes that shouldn't be done and are going to waste the company's money and time. And I don't mean to be a smart aleck when I say this, but I would keep my resume polished when I'm in that kind of a situation, because ultimately it can come back to kill you or haunt you. Any questions yet? Okay, if you don't have any questions, that means that we either answered them all or you've gone to sleep out there, because one of the things we can't monitor as we can in the classroom is whether you're actually fully clothed, awake, and alert. And so we'll just assume that you are for the moment. And I want to first of all thank all the participants who worked hard on developing this webinar. They only had 2 hours to do this, and so digging out research and trying to put together a presentation taxed their limits because it's a fixed time problem, and that's typical of projects. So we hope that this simulated a real world project where they not only had to do their own part, but they also had to consolidate and coordinate it with each other. So in group one, we had David Hammock, Yvonne Meter, Mike Porter, Sandra Dawson. They talked about the causes of launch failures. Group two talked about solutions, and that included Bill Davis, Leanne Anderson, Daniel Curlin, Lizanne Razak, and Emery's Treasure. And in group three, we had Beverly Henson, Claudia Safarsh, Tina Mace, Vijaya Nandawala, and Rachel Patrick. And I know I'm butchering the pronunciation of their names, and they're all grimacing, so forgive me for that. And let's wrap this up by saying thank you for attending our program. If you'd like more information on the certificate program, go to the link on the slide here, continuingeducation.ncsu.edu again. My company is called the Lewis Institute. If you're interested in having some of these programs delivered on an in-company basis, you can contact me through the website. I'm not putting phone numbers and stuff up here because those change and the website will stay constant. Also, we do have some self-paced e-learning courses for those of you that are interested in project management, and you'll find those on the website. A couple of books that I've done that are the basis for this course: Project Planning, Scheduling, and Control, which is in 5th edition now, and Mastering Project Management. These are both books that you may want to take a look at some point in your career. So, thank you very much, and good luck to all of you.